Hello. I'm Luke, the owner and founder of the Living Care Company, and I'd love to welcome Darren Legg from Motability. Hi, Darren.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, great to have a chat with people like yourself, suppliers and service providers within the care sort of industry. But Darren, just tell us what you do and what your company does, if you would.
Yep, no problem at all. So very similar to yourself. So I'm the founder of Dietz Mobility in the UK. We're a distributor of mobility and disability equipment, and that covers a reasonably vast range through sort of walking aids, wheelchairs, powered wheelchairs, um, other additional sort of accessories and options and equipment that sits around the provision of those products. We supply to the whole of the UK and Ireland, and we're primarily a business to business company. So we have a network of dealers and suppliers and therapists and other providers throughout the UK who would obviously then look to assess and provide our products to anybody in the UK and Ireland who has a need for them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And what sort of led you onto this sort of pathway to launch this company? But how long have you been?
Yeah, so for myself personally, it's now been 24 years in this industry. So something that had always been around us. So a few family members that had various disabilities. So I kind of grew up with that around us. It wasn't necessarily something I kind of planned into, but as ever for a lot of people, the universe kind of takes you in a certain direction. And a few things led to first for myself starting up with a company who were based just south of London, who were a manufacturing company, mainly power chairs at that point, and that was primarily where I was for sort of 15, 20 years of my life in various roles, but eventually kind of leading towards sort of leadership within those businesses. Through a couple of acquisitions, we were kind of moved up into even bigger suppliers, and kind of eventually got to that point where it felt a little bit, not sure if too big is the right word, but the kind of the thought about the end user got missed a little bit too much for my liking. And I kind of really kind of needed to move away from that culture. When I looked around, particularly within the powered wheelchair market, but obviously other products as well, I couldn't really see something where I looked, that's really me. That's where I really want to be. So if that's not there, I've got to make it and find it and do it myself. So that was 21, I think, if I'm getting it right now. Yeah, about 2021. So I made that jump, started my own business, get everything ready to go. And the following month, COVID hit and pandemic, etc. So yeah, that was my start to my business. But thankfully, actually, it led to a lot of things like this. A lot of people happy to jump on Zoom or Teams or whatever the preference was and have some good conversations around what would things look like once the world opened back up again. So yeah, a long time in the industry, seen lots of different equipment into, lots of things that have been around the businesses that I work with as well. So also looking at things like stair lifts, patient handling equipment. So a broad array and a really good network and a good knowledge base of what's around in the country.
You mentioned that bear- keeping in mind the needs of the end user is important to you. So how do you what's your approach for that?
What we really want to offer, and it is part of our company mission and our kind of values, is that we really want to make sure that there's choice and that choice is also spoken about. I think potentially what can happen in a number of instances is that a preferred product from a preferred supplier is the one that gets shown, and that there's no other alternative discussed or talked about. And for me, that doesn't give an individual the knowledge and the experience to make a choice of what they might want to have for themselves. So we're very key throughout the business and also with the businesses that we supply to, that there should without a doubt be that kind of independence and that choice of what's available, and be very clear also, the benefits and the pitfalls of each individual item as well, and explore what that might mean and how that can hopefully benefit who's going to be sat in that chair or using that chair. We
A proper
also
sort of consultation really to understand the needs of the client
definitely,
before
yeah.
making any sort of recommendation.
Yeah, and we typically also try to make sure we're thoughtful of everybody in that mix as well. So not forgetting the carers, not forgetting family, people who maybe have to go out and service and maintain that equipment as well. Because it's great if the product fits to start with. Then if things need to be adjusted, and that's really quite difficult for somebody to go and do, that's not a great long-term experience. So really trying to, like say, consult and assess and understand everybody in that mix as to what hopefully could work best for them to make sure that lifetime of that product's going to be as smooth as possible.
What is the range of products that you offer, Darren?
So we primarily have walking aids within the range, so mainly rollators, but other peripherals around that as well. Manual wheelchairs, powered wheelchairs, and a number of options and accessories as well.
Stair lifts as well.
So we don't currently do those ourselves, but we have got a referral scheme that we work on.
Darren, I expect that your products are sort of manufactured in various places. Are some made in the UK and some made abroad? Or
Yep. Yep. So primarily European-based manufactured products. So that will be Holland, Germany, Belgium in the main. We do also have, for some of the options and accessories, they are UK companies that we source those from. So we do tend to try and keep that quite nicely focused as well, that it is kind of European and UK manufactured products. Yeah.
and what type of mobility products do you offer?
Yeah. So it can be from a reasonably basic walking aid. So that can be to get somebody round about the shops, slightly more rougher terrain if they're doing things like woodland walks and wanting to get a little bit further afield. From a wheelchair point of view, that can be a fairly basic, everyday sort of around to the shops, in and out of the car, manual foldable wheelchair. And then some for more active users. We do also do some very heavy duty ones for more sort of bariatric requirements. And then for the powered wheelchairs, again, that can be reasonably basic mobility, get somebody around all the way up to some fairly complex solutions where somebody maybe needs to use a head array or a chin control, quite clinical postural seating requirements. And again, something that can be quite lightweight and lifted up into a car. At the same time, some more robust ones that would be for longer distances over fairly rough terrain.
Yeah. Um, what's your most popular product line? Where's the highest need?
Yeah, from a kind of volume perspective with kind of walking aids, there's definitely a large call for those. Again, because everybody wants to have a little bit of assistance without having to go into a wheelchair, preferably a lot of times. And also because of the environment they're being used in. So that could be solely indoors, can be a little bit indoor, outdoor, and sometimes, like I've said, sort of woodland walks and slightly rougher terrain. Definitely for us, the power chairs are a big requirement. And again, so because sort of government and NHS provision at times can be a little bit truncated and can be a little bit not offering a complete choice again. So we tend to find that somebody who really wants to really individualize their product and have something built really just for them, they come to us for that solution. And again, more sort of compact indoor use right the way through to kind of road use and off-road rougher terrain things as well.
One of the clients of Dietz Mobility.
Yep. So we have a network of independent dealerships throughout the UK and Ireland. There's a number of those, and some of those will be smaller sort of one store showrooms, others which have, regional or national coverage from a number of stores. So generally we would sell directly to those dealers. Those dealers would then work with therapists and care staff and individuals to assess and provide and support the products after sale.
Understood. How does one of your sort of assessors or sales people, how do they help the client to try to decide what's the right product for them?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, what we try to do is really clarify, is there an existing bit of equipment in place? And is that looking to be replicated, or are there things that worked well and things that didn't work well, so that we can get an understanding of what the current situation is?
Yep.
Asking a lot of questions, and it can sometimes be a lot of questions, because for us to really understand, we need to know, where's the chair being used? What kind of functionality do we need? What kind of postural support or pressure care do we need to put in place? Simply, is it being transported in the boot of a car? Or is somebody being transported while sat in that vehicle? Or indeed, are they looking to drive a vehicle whilst sat in their power chair, as an example? So a whole range of questions, which again leads us to offering that choice, so that we can make sure we go through different options, different chassis, different ways that that chair can operate, to make sure that we can really try and get to that finite point. We will always take out an assessment product, so in that way it can be tried. Obviously, it won't always be exactly to the specification because of the number of options available, but we try to make sure we've got something as close as possible. One of the big benefits to our power chairs is that the seating systems are really individually adjustable. So when we do take them out for assessment, we are also able to make adjustments there and then as part of that assessment, to make sure, not just relying on measurements and hoping for the best, but being able to adjust something pretty much to where it needs to be.
Gotcha. Yeah. Get it right for the individual user.
Yeah.
How do you stay up to date on the latest sort of advancements in mobility? And is there anything really exciting coming down the pipe in
Yeah.
terms of innovative designs and things like that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we visit a lot of trade shows, not just in the UK, but also in Europe as well. We're constantly talking to our suppliers as well, so that we can kind of understand where they're getting to and what those kind of trends look like as well. There are obviously groups of, social media groups and other things that you can kind of see what's coming through. So yeah, I think an interesting one sort of across the range when it's looking at lightweight products is there's definitely a big push for things along the lines of sort of carbon fiber, and not just in the wheelchair world anymore, but that's certainly making its way out into walking aids, etc. And also things that are happening with the actual sort of electronics of power chairs and scooters, not necessarily just the bits that are fitted on the chairs, but remote diagnostics, other ways of accessing information on those products, so that again, any potential problems that may have come up out of the blue could potentially be preempted. So a lot of kind of remote support, which I think will offer a really big benefit for users, where previously they'd have a problem, have to make a phone call, have to wait for somebody to come out, then they'd have to go and get the right bit, then come back again to fix it. Whereas that remote diagnostics could potentially shorten that process quite significantly. Yeah, there's a number of things. There's some Segway-based products that some people might have seen, particularly one brand that was on Dragon's Den recently, which again offers
Sort
some.
of balance themselves to an
That's
extent.
correct, yeah. Yeah, and offers, for a certain user group, offers a really good solution where maybe their manual lightweight active chair wouldn't have got them across a beach or something like that. So maybe more of a leisure product than an everyday product, but certainly a really interesting advancement, and to see where that will kind of settle into the marketplace as well.
See, if you were buying a mobility product for yourself or a loved one, how would you try to start making your mind up on from who and what sort of equipment to buy?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's to get an understanding of what that funding route might look like. And it is always a difficult thing because, money's, important for everybody. But I do see sometimes that people get quite a way down a route of looking into something without really kind of either understanding or being given the information as to what that might look like. Or indeed, again, going back to choice, what are my choices around how I could fund a product? I think for me, that would always be my advice to look at first of all is get a good feel for what kind of budget is realistic. And then are there other avenues like Motability or charity or other kind of funding routes that would allow that to happen? Or potentially that you're in a position to self-fund, in which case that kind of makes that choice a little bit more easy. So understanding that first of all. The next challenge really is kind of finding the right places to go to, because there are a big number of dealers, lots of which are very, very capable and have lots of experience, some of which are less so and maybe would just focus on the basic equipment. The bigger challenge I see is that there's still quite a lot of online companies where it's not clear about the support ending at point of sale, if that's the best way of putting it. And a lot of people, unfortunately, do see that. They see a cheaper price and think that that's great, but they don't understand that the service and everything that's potentially not going to happen afterwards will probably cost them more so afterwards. So really looking at, okay, who are, how am I going to fund this? Who are the best people to try and speak to? There are some lists out there, and there is an organisation called the British Health Trade Association, which basically any member of that sets by a code of conduct and guidelines, which should give reassurance to people to know where they're going is somebody who is, is going to be held to doing a good job. Not to say that people who aren't members aren't, but the ones who are certainly are held to that conduct.
What was the name of that organisation again?
So it's the British Health Trade Association, or BHTA for short. And like I say, they have a really good code of conduct, which holds their members to, to what they should be doing and doing things in the right way. So that would be certainly something. I think is also just to make sure that people do try more than one place as well, just to get a good feel for, what's the right place for me and what's the right way of having this product provided to me. Alternatively, of course, reaching out to to anyone they come across and see if they do have somebody in their network that can help to advise them. We do have that quite regularly, and even if it's not a product that we provide, we will always, try and signpost somebody to the best place for them to go and further that conversation.
Can you tell us a bit about the Motability scheme? Just sort of explain it and what sorts of, where would people find out about it and how would they understand if it's even applicable to them?
Yeah, so the Motability scheme, the majority of people know the Motability scheme from the car part of the scheme, and they're not always so sure that there's the other part of the scheme, which is for if they were looking at a mobility scooter or a mobility power chair. So unfortunately, I can't have both because of the way that the funding would work. So it is either a car or a scooter or a power chair, not both. What that basically means is that anybody who has the higher rate of PIP is able to use that money to source a product through the Motability scheme. And depending on that product, that could be the full allowance or it could be part of their weekly allowance. So basically, they will sign up with Motability. It will be a 3-year scheme for basic products. If the product comes a little bit more complex, that's normally done over a 5-year period. Within that period, all of the service and the maintenance and everything of that product is all completely covered, including some recovery cover as well, in case there was a breakdown anywhere. Basically, speaking to a dealer who's accredited on the Motability scheme, they would assess what product is most relevant, take that user through the paperwork, fill everything out for them. And basically then the money which would have come in to themselves from the government will instead go to Motability for the payment of the hire of that product. Then at the end of the 3 years, they have the option to sign up again for a similar product or something a bit different, or come back off the scheme and finish it at that point. But it's a good scheme for somebody who really wants that kind of worry-free experience and potentially hasn't got the budget to self-fund something completely upfront. So that weekly allowance would basically hire them that product over the 3-year period.
Thank you. What's your company, Dietz Mobility? What plans have you got?
So we are growing and we continue to grow, thankfully. So a positive story there. We're looking at further coverage. So from ourselves, as far as the business, to establish more things. And we will also be looking at other distribution agreements as well for different products, which we're thankfully in a very nice position where we do now have people approach us because of what they've seen and how they've seen we do things, and they want to be part of that journey. And ideally what we really look for is products which are going to complement and supplement the current range. So not more things for the sake of it, but more things that make sense to fit within our range. We will be launching a new website fairly soon. That will be partly of that will be our Dietz mobility branding, but also to encompass other parts of our distribution agreements as well. So we're really quite excited about that because we've got some really kind of cool plans with that, and trying to make sure obviously that we can give everybody as much information as possible, not necessarily just about what we do, but also other things that they might want to consider, and guidance and signposting, etc.
Thank you. Really appreciate your time, Darren, and thanks ever so much for taking us through Dietz Mobility.
Yep, no, great. Thank you very much. And yeah, it's been great to talk to you, and thank you for the opportunity.